The honourable member for Thornhill.
6 months ago, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he'd get the deficit under control, that he'd lower our debt and lower inflation. Instead, he's blown an $80 billion hole in the budget. The debt is climbing, inflation is climbing, and he's added $90 billion in new spending. That's over $5,000 for every family. Every dollar that the Prime Minister spends costs Canadians in higher taxes, higher inflation, and more expensive debt. With this budget, Canadians are paying champagne prices for tap water results. So why is he asking them to pay more?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll refer to the previous comments of the honourable member from Winnipeg North. This budget is about building this great country. And what this budget shows is that with the $1 trillion of investment that we are going to catalyze, we are going to put more than $3,000 in the pocket of every Canadian by the end of this decade.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Speaker, they're not investing in the next generation. They're borrowing from it. This Prime Minister is on track to be the most expensive in Canada's history. The only ones cashing in on it are bankers. Interest payments on the national debt will cost Canadians $55 billion this year. That's more than this government spends on health care and more than it collects in GST. Every dollar that Canadians pay in GST doesn't go to doctors or nurses or hospitals. It goes to bankers. So why is the Prime Minister so determined to make sure that bankers get better care than patients?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this budget preserves the health transfer to the provinces over $29 billion. This budget puts $5 billion into health infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, this budget has the lowest net debt to GDP in the G7. It has the lowest deficit projected, and the cost of interest borrowing is lower than when the Conservatives were in government.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Lobinière. The cost of this Liberal budget is going to drive up the price of food, of housing, and everything else that Canadians need. The Prime Minister claims that Canada is in a strong fiscal position. Then why are families having such a hard time making ends meet? Home ownership is virtually impossible for young people. Why are 2.2 million Canadians lining up at food banks every month? That's not solid. That's not strong. The Liberal leader has chosen to enrich his friends with an $80 billion deficit. Why is the Prime Minister breaking his promise to spend less by adding fuel to the fire of inflation? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, 75% of the new measures in this budget this year are for protecting Canada's sovereignty and for affordability for all Canadians. First point. Second point, this is a budget that invests in Canada. It's a budget that shows confidence in Canada, a budget that's going to put more than $3,000 in the pockets of Canadians. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that is going to go down in history. This Prime Minister is going to go down in history as the most costly government leader in the history of Canada. I'd like to remind him of something important. Every dollar that he spends comes directly out of the pocket of a Canadian who's worked hard to earn it. He promised to spend less, and yet his deficit's going to be almost $80 billion. And in the Journal de Montréal, we read this morning that the federal government is disconnected from real life. What parallel universe is he living in, the Prime Minister? He doesn't understand that he's fueling inflation with his spending, and it's making life harder for every Canadian. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's not the most costly budget, it's the most ambitious budget. The most ambitious budget for Canada. It's ambitious when it comes to building housing for Quebecers and Canadians, housing across the country, for clean energy, for the future of Canada. This is a budget for the future.
The honourable member for Calgary East.
This Prime Minister's $80 billion deficit will cost each Canadian household $5,400 while avoiding the tax pain he imposes on Canadians. Coming from the guy that set up a $30 billion offshore tax havens for Brookfield when he was chair. He continues to dodge questions on how much money he personally has stashed away offshore while avoiding the taxes he imposes on Canadians. Will he stand up today and tell Canadians how much money he has in offshore tax havens, just the number.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this budget tightens tax fairness. Mr. Speaker, this budget cuts taxes for 22 million. This budget cuts taxes on new homes for young Canadians starting out. This budget cuts the carbon tax. This budget grows this great country. Come with us and support it.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
He's avoiding the question like he helped Brookfield avoid taxes. When he imposes higher taxes on Canadians, they have a right to know if this Prime Minister still has money in offshore tax havens. I'll give him one more chance. Will he stand up on his own 2 feet and tell Canadians exactly how much money he has stashed away in offshore tax havens, just the number?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of my record in the private sector, but I'm deeply honored to serve Canadians. And we're serving Canadians by building this great country, by investing in homes, by investing in energy, by investing in ports, by investing in our future. We are going to grow this country like not seen before. There is a chance for everyone in this House to stand up and support it.
the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, for a Quebecer, standing up means standing up for the independence of Quebec. We gave this government a chance. You know, they're in a recruitment campaign, and we said, could you eliminate discrimination when it comes to old age security that's paid to people who are age 65 to 74? They get 10% less than those who are 75 and over. All they had to do was say, yes, that's a principle of justice that we can follow. Does he recognize that he simply refused to help retirees? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in this budget, there is more than $80 billion in transfers for seniors across Canada. $80 billion. Yes, older seniors do get more, and that is justice. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, he didn't read his notes, he didn't read his budget. A second chance. We suggested to the government, you know, it's one thing to build homes, but young people have to be able to afford to buy them. And we said to the government there should be a privileged access system to credit for young families who are buying a first home so that somebody can buy those first homes. The government refused that. Will the Prime Minister confirm that he refused to help young people buy a first home with access to credit? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, yes, there is an advantage for young people who are buying their first home, and that is justice. And that's on top of the big investments that we're making in housing. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The priority of Quebecers and Canadians is also health care. We offered to work with the government to increase health care transfers so that they could follow the increases in spending across the health care system in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. The government said no. Quebec and Canadian taxpayers are going to be paying more and more in taxes, or they're going to have less money to do other things. Will the government confirm that it refuses to increase the health transfers so that they can follow the increased costs on the systems? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have good news. Good news for Quebec. $12 billion in transfers for health care and $5 billion for infrastructure, for health care infrastructure in this budget. And there's $4 billion for Hydro-Quebec. There's the port in Contrecoeur. There's the second dock in Saguenay. and $500 million for culture, particularly for cultural institutions in Quebec.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canadian history. The Prime Minister doesn't seem to understand that the more he spends, the more things cost for regular Canadians. Liberals had a chance to lower food costs by scrapping the industrial carbon tax, but they chose to increase food costs by increasing the industrial carbon tax. That drives up costs like fertilizer and farm equipment. So why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for Canadians?
Yeah, way to go, Leanne.
Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, if Conservatives vote against Budget 2025, they vote against old age security. They vote against guaranteed income supplements. They vote against the New Horizons for Seniors program.
Wow.
They vote against anti-fraud measures that will protect seniors from financial crime. They vote against a tax credit for personal support workers who care for seniors. And they vote against dental care that over 2 million seniors rely on. Canadians want to know, who are these Conservatives fighting for? Because it certainly isn't seniors.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, let me spell this out for the Liberals. No farms, no food. The food professor warns that we're the only country in the G7 that's seen 4 consecutive months of rising food inflation. The industrial carbon tax is driving up wholesale food prices, full stop. The Liberals have introduced another of the most costly and largest deficit budgets in Canadian history. So when Canadians are already struggling to put food on the table, why is the Prime Minister so intent on increasing the industrial carbon tax to make food more expensive?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me quote Sylvain Charlebois. Ottawa has quietly set the stage for some indirect relief, not through grocery subsidies and consumers-facing policies, but through infrastructure, trade, administrative reforms that could make the food system work a little more efficiency. Mr. Speaker, our farmers have been asking for some of this stuff for a long time. Stand up and give it to them.
Again, through the chair, please. The honourable member for Ponoka, Didsbury.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canadian history, and every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more they spend, the more things cost. Unfortunately, this Liberal Prime Minister didn't learn anything from the mistakes of the last Liberal Prime Minister. They had a chance in their budget to lower food costs for Canadians by scrapping the industrial carbon tax. Yet they chose to make food more expensive by increasing the industrial carbon tax, driving up the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. So why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Emergency Management and Community Resilience.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 delivers a stronger Alberta economy by backing workers and industries and innovators. It supports jobs and Alberta's economic edge. Alberta Chamber of Commerce CEO Doug Griffiths said it's a clear commitment to driving economic growth and job creation. Conservatives can't stand up for Alberta if they won't listen to our business community.
Member for Ponoka, Didsbury.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal industrial carbon tax drives up the price of food. Since this Prime Minister took office, strawberries are up 25%, beef is up 25%, coffee is up 20%. The food professor Sylvain Charlebois told us that the widening gap between Canadian and American food prices was driven by one single factor, the carbon tax. He predicts bad news for 2026 and states that we're the only country in the G7 which has seen 4 consecutive months of a food inflation rate increase. Why is the Prime Minister insisting on making food more expensive for Canadians by raising
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I am so proud proud to stand today and support a budget that is growing this country, but is also paying attention to rural communities. And I can tell you, in Newfoundland and Labrador, investment in roads, bridges, hospitals, houses, communities, it matters. And I'm asking my Conservative Newfoundland and Labrador colleagues, are they going to vote for the things that matter to our province?
The honourable member for Chatham-Kent, Leamington.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, and the more they spend, the more things cost. The Liberals just had a chance to lower food prices by scrapping the industrial carbon tax. But instead they chose to make food more expensive by hiking the industrial carbon tax that makes food, fuel, and farm equipment more expensive. These costs are passed directly on to Canadians at the grocery store. Why is the Prime Minister not scrapping the carbon tax and making food less expensive?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives are focused on imaginary taxes, we're building Canada strong, Mr. Speaker. And Budget 2025 invests $51 billion into the Build Community Strong Fund, Mr. Speaker. That's good news for families in southwestern Ontario, like my colleague from that area. This includes money for the Newton Athletic Park in Surrey. It includes the Royal Athletic Park in Victoria. It includes the Hamilton Downtown YMCA. It includes the Hamilton Sportif de Montreal. Mr. Speaker, we're going to build Canada strong, and that includes sports facilities for our communities. I hope that member of Parliament will vote for our budget.
The honourable member for Chatham-Kent, Leamington.
Mr. Speaker, the following is not imaginary. The food professor, go ahead, Mock, said, and I quote, "The gap between wholesale prices in Canada versus the U.S. wholesale prices has widened, and one factor driving that is the industrial carbon tax. Canada is the only G7 country that's had 4 consecutive months of food inflation increases. Farmers, manufacturers, builders across the country are paying more for fertilizers, steel, and concrete, costs that end up on Canadians' plates. While other G7 countries are lowering costs, this Prime Minister is ignoring the experts, increasing the carbon tax, and making food more expensive. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Very often quoted Sylvain Charlebois had exactly this to say about Budget 2025. Instead, he said our investments in logistics and corridors and trade will bring prices down for food. He said, Speaker, is exactly what the food professor has called for.
The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, we now know that this government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more the Liberals spend, the more life costs. Every economist knows this. The Prime Minister could have scrapped the inflationary industrial carbon tax. Instead, he chose to increase the tax and increase costs for all Canadians. My question to the Prime Minister is simple. Why is he increasing the industrial carbon tax and making our food more expensive?
Why? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, here's what our government is doing. Last week, we worked with 9 different countries to announce 25 different transactions to bring $6.4 billion to 6 new mining and processing facilities all across this country. Voting for this budget will bring a lot more of that, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the budget, it's the worst of both worlds. It's a Liberal deficit with Conservative ideas. Nothing for healthcare, nothing for seniors, environmental cuts. It's Stephen Harper all over again. And it's not me who said it, it's the government House Leader yesterday who said it, and I quote, "This is a budget that Conservative voters could love." The Liberals aren't even hiding it, except that Quebecers, they didn't vote Conservative. They didn't vote for cuts to health care. They didn't vote for our seniors to be abandoned. They didn't vote to end the fight against climate change. Why are the Liberals not meeting the demands of Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Canadian identity and culture. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers voted for 44 Liberal members on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you might remember who was president of LADISC in 2003. He was, it was the leader of the Bloc Québécois, and he was in favor of investments in Canadian culture at the time. And now the member is going to tell his members to vote against cultural investments for TV and music in Quebec for our artists. He's saying, no, we don't want those investments in Quebec. The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, this is the budget of climate capitulation. Cuts of 15% to the Department of the Environment. Ending the cap on emissions in the oil and gas sector, tax credits for the oil and gas sector, and more. This morning, the Environment Commissioner was clear. He said that Canada would not be able to meet its greenhouse gas emissions reductions targets for 2030, and we're going even further back by ending carbon pricing. There's more money for the oil sector, less money for the environment. We're heading straight into the wall. Why are the Liberals keeping their foot on the gas? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I say it every day, our government will continue to fight climate change. And if you look at the budget, you'll see the investments. There will continue to be industrial carbon pricing. We are going to reduce methane emissions, but not only that. If you look throughout the budget, you'll see that we are fighting climate change in every department of the government. We're going to do the work. We will build a strong Canada.
The honourable member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
The Toronto home building industry has released a scathing report on this government's budget, warning of 100,000 job losses in the sector, despite the Prime Minister promising 500,000 homes a year during the election. The government continues to refuse to implement our policy of cutting the GST on all new homes under $1.3 million. Now, housing starts have plummeted and developers are laying off their trained staff because the cost of government is just too high. Why won't the government listen to the experts and cut the GST on all new homes under $1.3 million so builders can get back to work and building the homes that Canadians so desperately need?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, here's the reality check. The Conservative Party of Canada is voting against the largest investment in infrastructure in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of jobs, apprenticeship opportunities, opportunities for our youth, opportunities to train the next generation, Mr. Speaker. Roads, bridges, community centers, hospitals, you name it, major projects in the national interest, homes, Mr. Speaker. None of this happens if the Conservatives vote against the budget. I hope they'll reconsider.
The honourable member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if spending money could solve the housing crisis, we'd have a surplus right now. This from a government who named a housing minister who made housing taxes 141% more expensive in Vancouver and also increased the prices of homes by 149%. We're in a housing crisis now, and it's clear this guy doesn't get it. The experts are warning of 100,000 job losses in the sector. So if the government won't listen to us and what we're saying about cutting the GST on homes under $1.3 million, why won't they listen to the experts?
Here. The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the real question is, will the Conservatives support the most aggressive housing budget in Canadian history? Will you? Come on. Your new government is proposing the biggest investment in our history in affordable housing, putting Canadians to work, building the affordable housing that we need. We're seeing unprecedented levels of housing starts. We're seeing progress in housing right now, and we're doubling up on that. We're going to build. We expect your support on the budget to do more.
Again, to members, through the chair, I don't have an opinion on this. The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
On Tuesday, Canadians saw the truth about this Liberal government's disastrous housing plan. They promised to build 500,000 homes a year, but turned into a plan to kill 100,000 jobs. Toronto's Build Association says the budget is particularly troubling. Not an actionable plan to reduce housing fees with any urgency. They promised to cut development charges by 50%, but surprise, another broken Liberal promise. Housing sales have collapsed, down 82% in the GTA. Will the Prime Minister finally admit he is not building homes, he's only building a long list of broken promises?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that will invest in Canada, invest in young Canadians, invest in Canadian families from coast to coast to coast. We are supporting youth by giving opportunities to help them build skilled trades and access high-paying careers and jobs across the projects, building homes, building out major national projects. We are investing in training and supports for 20,000 youth who are facing employment barriers, 24,000 additional Canada Summer Jobs opportunities, co-ops, internships, and apprenticeships across the country. We hope that members opposite will support young people and their opportunities for jobs.
Good job, good job. The Honourable Member for Newmarket Aurora.
We've heard this before. The recycled ideas in Canada's housing industry continues to fall. Housing sales are down 82% in the GTA. Toronto's Build Association warns that this budget is built on backward-looking data that provides false assurances. In simple terms, builders can build, sellers can sell, and buyers cannot buy. And not only that, this budget will cost 100,000 jobs and commit us to a future with fewer homes and fewer opportunities. Will the Prime Minister come to his senses and finally address the cost of development charges so we can unleash our housing construction?
Yes, the Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality, Tourism and Small Business.
Mr. Speaker, when Conservatives talk about affordability, what they really mean are cuts. Cuts to the programs that Canadians vitally rely on. Parents and families know that they can trust our government has their backs. We've strengthened the Canada Child Benefit, providing families nearly $8,000 for children under 6 and $6,570 for children aged 6 to 17. Through the budget, we are making permanent the National School Food Program, which will give parents peace of mind so that they can send their kids to school with a full meal. Mr. Speaker, well, what she was really referring to is the only thing recycled on that side of the House are their slogans, Mr.
The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends costs out of Canadians' pockets. The more he spends, the more everything costs. He promised to lower the debt to GDP ratio, he raised it. He promised to spend less, but he has blown $90 billion, costing every family $5,400. Now Liberal spends more on interest payments than health care, spending $55.6 billion to service debt while Canadians struggle to pay for grocery and housing. When will the Prime Minister stop mortgaging Canadians' future and deliver an affordable budget for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, that member has risen in this House many times to address public safety concerns, and I know that his constituents in Brampton have those concerns because they're my constituents too, Mr. Speaker. In this budget, there are historic investments, $1.7 billion to the RCMP. Oh. We're deploying 1,000 new officers and 1,000 new CBSA agents, Mr. Speaker. But the Conservatives have said they're not going to support it. But it doesn't surprise me since their leader thinks the RCMP is despicable.
The Honourable Member for Brome, Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, as a former mayor dealing with infrastructure problems and housing, and it doesn't just affect urban ridings, but also rural ridings like mine, Brome, Missisquoi. The government has committed to investing in housing and infrastructure as part of the Canada Strong budget, a once-in-a-generation investment. Can the Minister of Finance tell the House what steps are being taken to build more boldly and quickly than ever before in ridings like mine? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have all kinds of good news for Canadians, but we only have 30 seconds. to explain to Canadians, yes, with Build Canada Homes, we're going to build more affordable homes. And together with the communities, we're going to invest in water and other municipal infrastructure. And yes, we have a fund for health infrastructure, like Quebec asked for. All members in this House should stand up in favor of this generational budget to help the next generation to build Canada strong. We believe in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister introduced his first budget, much more costly than Canadians anticipated. A $78 billion deficit is a high hurdle to get over, but the fiscal year is not final yet, and this government has never set a spending target they haven't blown past. Don't worry, there's more debt ahead, and the next 5 years of forecast deficits have doubled under this Prime Minister. And I'll correct the Prime Minister, because 10 years ago under the last Conservative administration, debt servicing was $28 billion and going down. It's $55 billion going up now. So why is the Prime Minister choosing to ignore the inflation he's causing and driving up costs for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, this is a generational budget that will increase Canada's economic competitiveness and prosperity. That's good news for our small, medium and large businesses. The President and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Candice Lang, says the government has heard businesses call to focus on the economy and has made some tough choices to attract investment. Mr. Speaker, this is about building the strongest economy in the G7. I hope we can count on our colleagues' support.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Well, that wasn't the answer to the question. I think it was a lot of fantasy at the end of the day. But this government, once again, has revised its so-called fiscal anchors. That's another target they keep missing. No problem, just change the definition. This year's anchors are so weak, they're practically meaningless. When you change definition to fit your narrative, you undermine trust and accountability. Canadians deserve stability, not a government that moves the goalposts whenever it suits them. Mr. Speaker, Canada's fiscal position is adrift. Will the minister admit this budget has no fiscal responsibility and his so-called anchors are a political spin? Thank you.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, this government recently announced a 3-year extension of Operation Reassurance, Canada's largest overseas military mission with over 2,000 CAF members stationed in Latvia. Is this member seriously suggesting that Canada should not pass a budget which allows us to give the strongest expression of our commitment to NATO, as Canadians reinforce NATO's eastern flank by contributing to collective defence and cooperative security in the region? Mr. Speaker, Canada is leading a 14-nation multinational brigade there. I would suggest the members opposite join us, support our Canadian Armed Forces.
The honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more he spends, the more things cost. The Prime Minister promised Canadians that he'd keep the deficit less than $62 billion. Instead, it's $78 billion. He told Canadians he'd get rid of the consumer carbon tax, but instead, the industrial carbon tax is set to rise and make food even more expensive by driving up the cost of fuel, fertilizer, and farm equipment. Why is the Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax, and why does he want to make food more expensive?
Oh, give it to him, come on! The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, a working-class Canadian voting Conservative would be like a chicken voting for Colonel Sanders. My goodness, Mr. Speaker, when I took to people who live in rural Nova Scotia, they want simple things. They want good jobs, better health care, lower taxes, and this budget delivers all three. You don't have to take my word for it. Listen to a statement from the provincial progressive Conservative government in Nova Scotia, who congratulated the Prime Minister on his budget based on more money for health care infrastructure, for housing and development, and for tax incentives that are going to create good jobs for the people who live in my communities. Conservatives from different parts of the country know this is a good idea. The only Conservatives who seem to disagree are the ones who sit on the other side of this House.
L'honorable député de Côte-du-Sud.
The honourable member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have tabled the costliest budget with the biggest deficit in Canadian history outside of the pandemic. It will drive up the price of food, housing, and everything Canadians need. And it's our families who are paying the price at the grocery store for the industrial carbon tax that this government has hiked. A few weeks ago, I asked for an answer on behalf of a constituent in La Pocatière who was forced to choose between housing and feeding her family. We didn't get any answer. Why is this Prime Minister hiking the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for my constituent and all Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit surprised by my colleague's reaction. In this budget, there is help for Lévis and La Pocatière. In this budget, and I met with people from Napierville. In my riding, we have one of the biggest borders in Quebec. $1.7 billion to strengthen border security. That's what this budget has for all of us, and I'm sure that other constituents are supportive of this too. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals had a chance to ease the burden on Canadians, but since this Prime Minister took office, prices have skyrocketed. Strawberries up 25%, beef 25%, and coffee 20%. It's unbelievable. The industrial carbon tax is adding to the price gap with the U.S. and is likely to keep food inflation high. This is according to Professor Sylvain Charlebois. He said it'll stay that way for years to come. Mr. Speaker, once again, why is this government hiking this tax and making food even more expensive for our families? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, we're going to build Canada strong with generational investments in infrastructure. Budget 2025 holds $5 billion for an infrastructure and health fund, which will contribute to building new hospitals, ERs, care centers, and medicine faculties, to name a few. This is what the provinces and territories asked us to do, and that's what we've done. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives are for tax cuts to leave more money in the pockets of Canadians. Do you know where the Liberals have chosen to cut taxes? Try to stay in your seat here. Private aircraft and luxury yachts. This is no joke. It's for Liberal cronies. That's where they're cutting taxes. I would invite people to speak to single parents, to go to grocery stores and speak to seniors, whether they want tax cuts or lower food prices.
Minister of Indigenous Services.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd invite my colleague on the other side of the House to talk to all of his constituents, because in this budget, we decided to protect the position of First Nations. It's important also that we included infrastructure investments for water and housing. It's also important to invite the opposition to work with us to protect First Nations, and I know that there are some in his riding. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, the federal government is disconnected from reality. She talks about First Nations, but I was talking about luxury jets and yachts. So the answer had nothing to do with my question. There are people suffering and struggling, nothing for our seniors. Who decided to cut taxes on luxury yachts and jets? The Honourable Member. Well, it's tiring when a member from Quebec stands up and suggests that aerospace is not important in Quebec. That industry is very important. Bombardier announced 600 new jobs in Quebec yesterday. My colleague, as a former colleague of François Legault in Quebec City, should be calling François Legault and telling him what he thinks about this news.
The Honourable Member for Haldimand and Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, in a democracy, everything can be debated, but some moral lines should never be blurred. Protecting vulnerable children must remain one of them. The Supreme Court recently struck down a one-year mandatory prison sentence for two men who possess hundreds of sexual images of children, some as young as 3 years old. These are real victims of abuse and trauma. Why is this government more focused on protecting the charter rights of pedophiles rather than defending the dignity of children?
Yeah, way to go,
Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, plain and simple, child abusers should face the toughest penalties under Canadian law. Mr. Speaker, we are bringing forward legislation that is going to protect children. I hope the Conservatives can support it because their past record is that they haven't supported the online harms legislation. They haven't supported lawful access tools for law enforcement so we can catch child predators. They put politics before the safety of our children, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Haldimand Norfolk.
The sexual exploitation of children is one of the clearest and most horrific crimes imaginable. Recently, the Supreme Court struck down the one-year mandatory sentence for possessing child sexual abuse material. Yet this government refuses to use Section 33 of the Charter, the notwithstanding clause, to restore the minimal penalties for pedophiles. Why is this government choosing to protect the charter rights of predators over the safety and the innocence of our children?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, like I've said before, child predators are the worst criminals in our country, and they should face the toughest sentences. Mr. Speaker, that is exactly why we're bringing forward new legislation so that we can toughen sentences and make sure child predators stay behind bars, Mr. Speaker. But I would like the Conservatives to promise that they will support that piece of legislation and they will support C-19 that is currently before this House, because they have not supported us in the past when it comes to helping children and to protecting children. So please put your politics aside and support the children of this country.
Again, through the chair, please. Honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 is a generational investment in our economy, in our industries, and in Canadians. Canadians are paying lower prices for cellular services, a 40% decline in prices over 5 years. But these bills still eat into the pockets of Canadians. Budget 2025 has proposed measures to lower costs for Canadians and to improve competition. At a time when Canadians are concerned with rising costs and keeping their monthly bills affordable, can the Minister of Industry tell us how the government is working to lower cell phone bills?
Honorable Ministre de l'Industrie.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
I thank my colleague from Cumberland Colchester for her important question. She and I are laser focused, and this government laser focused on making sure that we bring down costs in the telecom sector, because we took the right decision this summer to uphold the decision of the CRTC to increase competition in the telecommunications sector. We said also that we would be hawkish on competition, so we will do more in this budget to increase competition and make sure that we reform our telecommunications sector. Thank you so much.
The honourable member for Edmonton Northwest.
The Liberals have introduced the most costly and largest budget deficit in history outside of COVID. The cost of this Liberal budget will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else Canadians buy. The young families, seniors, and veterans in Edmonton Northwest are having to make hard choices as the snow falls. It's costing more to heat their homes and feed their families. But every day in this House, the Liberals say families are just imagining higher living expenses by their taxes and increased spending. So why is the Prime Minister breaking his promise to spend less and pouring more inflationary fuel on the fire?
Good question.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Defence Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Budget 2025 will enable Canada to step up to meet the moment, to include $82 billion for defence and security. And here's a fun fact, Mr. Speaker. Stephen Harper's 2009 budget, adjusted for inflation, is actually the biggest deficit budget in Canadian history, with little to show for it. We'll take no lessons from the Conservatives.
The honourable member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Adjusted for the inflation that they caused. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' new budget is generationally expensive. It is historically expensive. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends will come out of Canadians' pockets. The more they spend, the more things will cost. Either through taxes or inflation in the future, the cost will come. $80 billion is $2,000 for each man, woman, and child in our country. That's $2,000 for my 3-year-old daughter and $2,000 for my 1-year-old son. Why should they have to pay this generational debt the Prime Minister is saddling us with? Why is the Prime Minister breaking his promise to spend less?
Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
This budget invests in lowering the cost of living and creating jobs, including $2 billion for the Critical Minerals Sovereign Fund. Critical minerals are in our phones, computers, solar panels, medical equipment, and more. Canada is rich in minerals, with projects in ridings held by Conservatives, Bloc Québécois, NDP, and Liberals, including in my home, the Northwest Territories. These investments mean good jobs, including in Ontario, stronger communities, and keeps Canada a leader in technology, defence, and healthcare. The Mining Association of Canada has applauded the budget, and I hope members opposite will too.
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more they spend, the more things cost. Nearly $80 billion in deficit spending. That means $450 a month coming right out of Canadians' pockets. This will make it even harder for Canadians to buy groceries and pay their bills. Instead, we get a bloated bureaucracy and high-priced consultants. Why does this Prime Minister believe he can spend hardworking Canadians' money better than they can?
The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we're focused on securing our sovereignty in the North and the Arctic with a $1 billion infrastructure fund for airports, seaports, all-season roads in North and in Northern Manitoba. We're focused on a $2.3 billion clean water for Indigenous communities. They're voting against an Inuit Nunangat University to build skills and hopes for Northern youth. We are focused on building, protecting, and empowering Canadians. They need to get on board.
The honourable member for Honoré Mercier.
Mr. Speaker, residents in my riding have expressed concern about the cost of living. Budget 2025 is full of great initiatives that will empower them and Canadians across the country.
Clearly, there are many in this House who would like to hear the member from the top.
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues are very excited to hear me today. Budget 2025 is full of great initiatives that will empower them and Canadians across the country to get ahead financially. Increasing competition is one way to achieve affordability. And in Budget 2025, there are several pro-affordability measures related to making the financial sector more competitive. Can the Secretary of State for the CRA and financial institutions inform this House about how the government is making life more affordable for Canadians by reforming the financial sector?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for that important question. In our generational budget, Canada's new government is making life more affordable for Canadians by making our financial system more competitive and innovative. Among other things, we are providing Canadians with more financial options by helping credit unions and smaller banks grow and compete, advancing open banking, which will make it easier for Canadians to find lower fee checking accounts, cheaper loans, and higher interest savings. On this side of the House, we're laser focused on making life more affordable for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The Prime Minister told Canadians that they need to sacrifice more to pay for the Liberals' inflationary deficit. But the Liberals sure aren't sacrificing much, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, an Ottawa gossip rag feted the Liberals for attending a lavish deficit cocktail party hosted by rich Ottawa insiders, lobbyists and media firms who were thrilled with the billions of tax dollars for their wealthy clients and owners. Will the Liberals apologize for popping champagne corks with rich lobbyists to celebrate a massive inflationary deficit while Canadians can't even afford a case of beer?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Canada wants the investment that this budget affords all Canada needs, and we're going to stand in support of rural Canada, Mr. Speaker. And in Saskatchewan, I'm going to tell our MPs, the Conservative MPs, Saskatchewan is watching, and all we're asking you guys to do was what you've been doing for the last 10 years on the budget vote. Sit this one out so that Saskatchewan can finally get help from the province to reach its full potential. Come on board.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
There was much hype about this budget. Much has already been made public in the pre-budget announcements. My question is not about is what is not in the budget. The impact of the 15% cut across most departments, including the loss of 40,000 workers, is buried in buzzwords like streamlining, modernizing, and recalibrating. Will the Prime Minister tell Canadians what programs are being cut, which ones will end when the funding sunsets, and how people in our communities will be impacted? Canadians deserve to know.
Hear, hear.
Le Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for the very important question that she asked. I think she will have seen in the budget that we remain true to our values, Mr. Speaker, Canadian values. We made sure that while we do a budget which is focused on the future and investment, that we protect people, that we protect childcare, that we protect pharmacare, that we protect dental care. You know what, Mr. Speaker? Because we understand on this side of the House that affordability and supporting Canadians at a time like this is essential, but at the same time, we're going to build a great future, Mr. Speaker. We're going to take care of Canadians today because we believe in Canada.
Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
It's increasingly clear that this government's budget fails to deliver the transformational change promised and fails to meet the moment. It fails to provide any relief right now for the millions of Canadians suffering through an affordability crisis. 60% are having trouble meeting their monthly expenses. Half are using credit cards or borrowing money for daily needs, paying interest rates of 19% or more. Why did the Liberals fail to provide concrete measures to help the millions of Canadians who need help now?
Le Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very glad for the question from my colleague. It's a very important question, and he will remember that the first thing we did for Canadians was to cut tax for 22 million Canadians because we understand that affordability is at the heart of the concerns of Canadians. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you will have seen in the budget an initiative that I know he supports because we talked about that, Mr. Speaker, when we made automatic benefits to Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That's the way we want to do. We want to cut red tape, support Canadians, and build a great country together.
Alors, ça met fin à la...
And that ends oral questions.